Like a red rag to a bull, NIO has tried to beat the Tesla Model Y in every conceivable way with this, the ONVO L60. But have they managed to do it? And is this the car to topple the dominance of the Tesla? Well, there's only one way to find out. My name is Elliot Richards, and this is the ONVO L60. This is the spiciest product preview I have ever attended. NIO's throwing shade all over the Model Y, and especially with this statement right here. NIO's models have won the JD Power Quality Award in their segments for 6 consecutive years. In contrast, Tesla consistently rank poorly in JD Power Quality surveys in the US. Can someone call the Burns unit, please? But regardless of statements like that, this is the new mass market model from NIO with their sub-brand ONVO, and this is the L60, and it's meant to appeal to a much wider audience. It comes in at 220,000 RMB, or around about 30,000 US dollars. But does it have the chops to compete in the highly competitive mass market segment? Well, that's what we're going to find out today. Can I just take a moment to say how much I dislike SUV coupes? It's the worst of both worlds. You've got the SUV footprint, which isn't great in itself, but then you have to compromise on space with this more attractive body. And so you lose like maybe a third row or lots of luggage space. And so it's the worst of both worlds for me. But ONVO have come onto the market with this because they want mass market appeal. They want to take a slice of that Tesla Model Y market. And this has to appeal to Uncle John down the road and Auntie Mildred in the next village over. So it's got to appeal to everyone. So they've gone very conservative with the exterior design. But I just want to say, we have already covered the exterior in a great level of detail in our other ONVO video when we saw this in the studio. So I'm not going to cover too much more, except for a couple of very small but vitally important updates. First of all, this body is made from 83% aluminium, which means it's lighter and stronger. So it will help with those crash test standards in the future, and also helps with its range. But another thing which really helps with its range is an insane level of focus on nips and tucks to make this car more efficient. So for example, these wheels, aerodynamic, they add about 9.8 kilometers to the car's range. These sculpted frameless wing mirrors add about 2.1 kilometers of range. These, I've forgotten the names of them, door handles add about 1.5 kilometers of range. And you think, why? 1.5 kilometers of range for one battery, doesn't matter, but add these all up and you get something which is very efficient and gets lots and lots of range, which is really, really important in appealing to the mass market. So all of those aerodynamic efficiencies really help give this much more range than the aforementioned Tesla Model Y. So somebody call the Burns unit again, because I've got another amazing stat for you. This car has a range of 555 kilometers of CLTC range. Do you know what the Tesla has? It's a pathetic 554. This has 1 kilometer range more, and that's what matters in this market. But all jokes aside, what batteries does this come with? Does it come with the NIO batteries? Well, no, it doesn't. ONVO has their own batteries and their own battery sizes. There's a 60 kilowatt hour battery and there's an 85 kilowatt hour battery. They can use the NIO swap stations, but it's a different set of batteries that they can swap in and out. Now in the future, they will have larger battery sizes, but those are expensive. They'll come to the market much, much later. But what do you get for your money in this that perhaps the Tesla doesn't have? Again, you've got your DC AC charging over here, but you've got a 900 volt charging. So it charges incredibly quickly if you find the right chargers across the country, which in China is actually not much of a problem. The insane level of detail kind of doesn't just affect the outside, it goes very, very deep into this car. And one of them is the motor, and this is the first time I've heard the motor described this way. It's 8 kilowatt hours per litre, which basically means that the size of the electric motor in this is about half that of the Tesla Model Y. Again, making it lighter and making it more efficient. But what is this actually like to drive? whilst I may not understand all of the engineering changes that have taken place in the car, there's one area I do understand, and that's driving and driving dynamics. And to be honest, the focus of this car is not on the driving or the dynamics of how it drives. It's all about the family experience, about how much they can package into one car. So it does beg the question, what is it like to drive? Is it a driver's car? Is it involved? Is it good? Well, I can tell you this. First of all, the 0 to 100 kilometers an hour or 0 to 60 time is 4.6 seconds. So it's plenty fast enough, as you would expect from an electric car. In terms of the chassis feel and the dynamism, it doesn't feel the best car in the world, doesn't feel like the most sporty car in the world, but it's not going for that market. What you do get is a pretty rewarding drive. It's smooth in terms of the modulation of the throttle and the brake, and that's something that they've got from the Neo parent group. Basically, they've been able to filter down that kind of premium feel of how it drives through these pedals, and my driving comfort as well. And in terms of driving comfort, this is really much more suited for not driving around mountain roads like this, because you can feel the heft and the weight when you go around corners. It's 1,885 kilograms. It's slightly lighter than Tesla Model Y by about 30 kg, but you can feel it rolling in the corners a bit more than perhaps a sedan would. And that's, of course, it's higher up, it's got higher suspension, and that battery is higher. So is this the best car for driving in the world? Absolutely not. Is it a really comfortable drive for long journeys, like going long distances? Yes, that is what this car is all about. And one of the biggest things in here is probably the seat comfort. I spoke earlier about how the back seats are extremely comfortable, but this really gives you support in the lower back. It's really hard down there. Now, obviously it's got the massage functions, so that helps relieve fatigue on long journeys. But I mean, really, this is about the long distance driving experience. We also have to remember that not every car has to be a driving dragon. It's not all about performance and how well it goes around the twisty B roads, like what we're doing right now around Hu Lake. This has got to have mass market appeal for Auntie Mildred going to Tesco's in the afternoon. She needs something that's easy to get into because she's got bad arthritis, for example, and then it drives easily and she's got lots of visibility, it's easy to park. This has to have mass market appeal, and it certainly ticks that box in almost every single way. I shouldn't be talking about how driving dynamics are, because it's not really that important, is it? Now, when you go to a motor show, you see clips from auto shows with these ridiculous concepts, which is 4 seats in a pod with no driver or anything, steering wheel, anything like that. This goes some way towards that future, because everything in here is less about the driving feel. It's all about the experience within the cabin. And I feel like this is one of the first steps towards that future where this doesn't exist. There's no steering wheel. Although this is a very nice steering wheel, I love the size. It's really compact, feels like a racing car wheel a little bit. But this interior it's kind of in between a Neo at the premium level and a Tesla at the bottom level. It kind of goes in between. So gone is the drive selector here in Neo models. It's simplified, it's up here, your lever, much like a Tesla. It feels very minimalistic like a Tesla, but the materials, the fixtures, finishings, the quality of in here, it's just a step above. For example, my seat is fully ventilated, it's got massage functions and it's got heater functions. The passenger seat has the same, but it's also got a heated leg rest. There's Dolby surround sound in here, 7.1.4 with 20 speakers, 2 subwoofers, 1,000 watts of power. I have Apple connectivity here. I can even plug in my Nintendo Switch to this as well. There's also got cameras in here which will recognise up to 19 different people and adjust the settings based on those 19 different people. Who's got a family with 19 people in it who will drive the same car? Doesn't matter, because this car can adapt to that. But it's not so much the front of this car that's so important, it's what happens in the back that I really want to focus on. Because look at this, the middle back seat. How often is this overlooked by manufacturers? And you have to get in the back of a car and you're squished in there and it's the most uncomfortable seat in the back. You're like, oh mum, why have you put me in this seat? But not so in this car. I have proper legroom. I can be up to 183 centimeters tall in either of these seats and be super comfortable. Now, it's slightly compromised because you don't have the same space on the sides as these other ones. It's not quite bolstered in the same way. But the comfort levels, the support levels, I could easily see myself being extremely comfortable on a long journey in here. I've got up to 160 centimeters of legroom in front of me. Great. But what I want to talk about is also this glass roof. So most cars now have glass roofs. This is 1.9 square meters, but the most important thing is I can sit in here with my hat off and my head won't burn because it has an SPF rating of 130, which is good news for us who are follically challenged. Good stuff, Mio. So this is really where I feel the living room kind of concept come to life. Now, often PR press releases say it's like a living room, but it really isn't. But I can see that this really becomes much more like that living space. There's also space for 18 bottles of water in the door. So storage space, important when you've got kids, when you've got family, you go on long journeys, you need space for your water bottle. All of these materials in here are PVC free. They're hypoallergenic. So if you have young children here, you don't want their skin to be irritated by cheap, nasty materials. And it's a list which goes on and on and on with all these kind of fairly standard features, but kind of make this space much more than just a backseat of a car. Now, to be honest, it's still fairly standard. It's a backseat of a car. I'm sitting in a seat like I would in any other automobile, but it feels like it's starting to define what's important in here, what is important when we go to our autonomous driving future with no steering wheel and the front seats are facing the other way. Is this what it's going to be like? And I do feel like this really starts to define that direction for the future, whether you like that or not. A couple of other features in here is I've got my seat adjustment here, so I can adjust the pitch of my seat so I can go backwards, forwards, make it more comfortable. It is extremely comfortable. I've got loads of leg room, loads of space under here. It's decent. And the other thing I just want to point out is I've got a screen here, so my 4-year-old can enjoy Peppa Pig and watch Daddy Pig doing something stupid all over again, but I can isolate his screen so I don't have to listen to it. Now the tech, you can't really see the technology that's gone into this car, but it's kind of all hidden, but I can talk to you about the screen. Now, this doesn't use the Neo Banyan operating system or anything like that. On this 17.2-inch screen, which is big, it's got something called Coconut, and within Coconut is something called Sky OS. All really rather confusing, but it's fast, extremely responsive. At the moment, only in Chinese. They haven't confirmed if it's going in any other language. But if you flick around this, as you can see, it's similar in UI UX to the Neo operating system with some minor differences. I'm sure Will from China Driven will give you all of the in-depth differences between his Neo and the ONVO L60. But as you can see, it's also got something called Xiaole. Instead of the Neo system, Normie up here, it's got Xiaole, which is like chat GPT assistant, so it can give you kind of, as well as route recommendations, where you can eat for dinner, what you can eat for dinner, like travel advice. It can do everything, but it can listen and communicate. I think it said 30 different commands within 20 seconds. I want to meet the person who can say 30 commands in 20 seconds, because that's insane. Oh, Elliot, we haven't slagged off Tesla for 30 seconds. So, oh yes, there's one other thing. This has Starlight Guardian mode, which is like Tesla's Sentry mode, which uses about 50 or 60% less power consumption when it's on. Tesla, over 16 hours, uses 2 to 3 kilowatt hours of battery. In this, it only uses 1 kilowatt hour of battery. Again, small changes that are marketed to those Tesla users saying, well, it's better here, it's better here, it's better here, it's better. It's in every way trying to make it better than Tesla. But overall, it means you get great value for money in this car. Just as we're at the rear very quickly, I just want to point out this kind of ducktail plastic spoiler here. This has 5.6 kilometers of range. Isn't that incredible? With small little detail adds so much range. Now, obviously this being an SUV coupe, practicality is exceptionally important, and this has a massive, massive boot. Over 550 litres, I think close to 590 litres of space in here. I mean, you can fit 4 full-size suitcases in here. You've even got a false floor for an extra suitcase down there. That is massive. In fact, if I get in, show you how far my legs go down. Yeah, that's a big boot, right? You could probably fit me in here as well. And you've got a few hooks for your curry bags or whatever you need to put in there. So again, not such a fan of the shape, but you do get loads and loads of space in here, and that's important for appealing to the mass market. So far, so good. So how does this car advance its mass market appeal, say over the Tesla or any of its competitors? Well, there's a few little nuggets that I'd like to tell you. So first of all, once you have dropped the kids off to school, pooted around Kensington or Xintiandi in Shanghai, you can then really let your hair down and put your pedal to the metal. Like I said, it does have that really fast acceleration, so you can have some thrills of driving in there, thanks to a 100 kilowatt hour electric motor in the front, 100 kilowatt electric motor in the front and 240 kilowatt electric motor in the back, giving it more than enough all-wheel drive power. But it's the other thing. So for example, the turning circle of this is, I think it's 10.2 or 10.8 meters. So it turns around very easily in tight situations. I mean, it's perfect for driving into that Tesco's car park or even driving into a battery swapping station. It can get into those tight spaces really easily. But I think the game changer, and I've said this before with Xpeng, for example, is these cars bring self-driving to the masses. And obviously Tesla does that. It brings self-driving. There's merits of both systems, of course. But this is a system that's tuned to China, and it works exceptionally well in China. Now, this is not geo-fenced anymore. You can drive on almost any road using the self-driving software. And like I've said many times before, any car which kind of makes that software normal and makes people get used to it and just becomes a normal feature of a car, like having lights or having seats, really will make a huge difference in the autonomous future. You may not want it, but I can tell you now, I don't really want to drive an autonomous car in the future or be driven around one. But there are times and places, so highway drives in foggy situations, this handled it with absolutely no problem. And that's the benefit of having ONVO. It brings LiDAR technology, it brings self-driving technology to a wider audience for so much less money. A few other great features in here. Obviously great visibility. I've got my heads-up display in front of me here. It gives me really good information directly in front of me, and it's not overly complicated, it's not confusing. I've got my map, I've got my navigation, my self-driving, and I've got my speed over there and the speed limit. And if you just look out the window behind me, you can see the absolutely stunning Thousand Island Lake. It's beautiful here, and luckily we're blessed with good weather today as well. A couple of like small, I say, issues in here. Now this screen is very good, it's got anti-glare, it's got anti-fingerprint stuff, fine. But the angle it's at and where the sun is at the moment, it's what, close to 10:30 in the morning. I can't see this screen. It's kind of very glary. Even though it's got anti-glare technology, it's quite hard to see, and that's because of the angle of the sun at the moment shining on this. So it's a little bit hard to see. I wish it could be angled slightly towards this way, or you had the option to angle it a bit more towards this way. So we've been driving for about an hour now, and there is one annoyance, and I have this in a lot of these cars that I drive, is down here where my leg rests. So my accelerator leg, my right leg, rests on the center console here, which is like stitched leather on the outside, but it's very, very hard on the inside. So my leg keeps rubbing against it. That should be definitely padded a little bit more. So do I believe this car has the mass market appeal to be really successful? Well, I mean, China is so competitive at the moment that success is not guaranteed by any measure. Even with a really compelling product like this, even with a really good car, delivers a option that's not a Tesla. And you're guaranteed to have the latest technology in this, whereas the Model Y is already feeling a little bit old, even though it's just a few years old. You know, the success of this really depends on, I think, brand, drawing people away from the Tesla brand appeal. So can ONVO do that? It's a new brand in a market which, you know, is very sensitive to what brands are like, which companies own them. Now, of course, NIO is successful. It's well known for doing high quality premium products. I think they can replicate some of that success, but really it depends on how the market responds to this